and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and today you get back-to-back weeks of lazy gaming guys. Last week I had Julian. This week I have Scott returning as part of the co-host rotation. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks. It's good to be back.
And it's good to have someone like Scott on for this week's episode because we are going to end it by reviewing or discussing the Demon Slayer Mugen Train review, the film which is the highest grossing, most attended Japanese film of all time. And it is going to be a spoiler review, but we're going to leave it till the very end of this week's episode. That way we can cover this week's news. So let's jump right in. Kicking things off with Fujifilm, which have released a limited edition Pikachu case. It's a mini-link smartphone printer, has since sold out and is back-ordered currently. It outputs 2x3 photos, so basically it's trying to recreate the blockbuster Pokemon Snap experience that you and I had back in the 90s. Have you gotten a look at this one, and have you played some of Pokemon Snap?
So I got a look at the thing, and it wasn't up for pre-order when I went looking for it, and then I just figured I was screwed out of it at that point. Like, the one time I looked, it's like nothing, and then now it was still pretty much nothing, and then I find out it's backward, and it's like, all right, that's just how I expected that to be, especially during this whole Pokemon craze bubble going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised that it sold out so quickly.
They did make the actual printer still available. I don't know if you saw that. It just doesn't have with the Pikachu case.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the fucking point?
Making it a Pokemon, the tie-in for Pokemon Snap, it's that's the whole thing. That's what people want. Not just a little tiny phone printer that puts out a 2x3 photos. What am I supposed to do with that normally? Why would I print little 2x3 photos?
So if this were available normally with the Pikachu case and everything, let's say they overdid these and they somehow met demand, is this something that you would buy to collect or to use for those little 2x3 photos?
So I would probably buy it just to collect it, just as a kind of Pokemon oddity, essentially as a tie-in with new Pokemon Snap. Is the reason I would buy it. It also depended. I never saw the price of it, so.
I don't think it was more than $100. It wasn't too insane.
Was that it was going to be $70 to maybe $80, and for that, yeah, I would have collected it just to have it on a shelf.
Have you gotten a chance to play new Pokemon Snap? What are your first impressions on it?
First impressions are that it's pretty decent. It very much felt like some of Pokemon Snap, the original. I feel the progression is a little weird. I know some of our other friends didn't have this issue, but for me, I've been I unlocked the first 3 kind of routes, and then I've had to replay them about 30 times and still haven't unlocked the next routes because of the way progression works. Essentially, instead of before where it used to be the amount of points you got total that would unlock, new areas, or the fact that you could interact with that world and unlock new routes through that. This one is very much each route has its own point totals to level them up, and you have to get each route to certain levels in order to unlock new areas.
The little bit that I've been seeing Kelly play, she has unlocked different items that you can use on different Pokemon, and it does seem like she's playing the same levels, but then there's a nighttime version, and then sometimes there's different Pokemon that show up on those same routes. So I don't know how she's progressing or if she even minds it. I know she does. She was really good at Pokemon Snap, and she used to. You can beat that game in under an hour if you know where everything is. That's what she still remembers everything. So in this one, she's still. I think at the beginning she was trying to do those tricks, like pushing Magikarp into the waterfall, little things like that, but it doesn't seem like it's that kind of game. It does feel more like you scan things and you unlock extra items than you normally would, and you cause the Pokemon to have different poses, different power-ups, maybe interact with each other, but it doesn't seem quite as secret heavy. It's not like the old one where you would have to get the three Jigglypuffs together to unlock the Mewtwo thing, or all of those things. I haven't at least noticed that yet.
I haven't either, but then again, I'm only like in the very beginning of the game because all I've unlocked is the apples that aren't apples.
Yeah.
Fluff fruit now.
And I love that all Pokemon will eat them, no matter what they are. Are you a meat-eating cat? Yeah, I like those apple things. Are you a bug? Yeah, I like those apple things. They all love it.
It doesn't matter. It's just every Pokemon loves fluff fruit for whatever reason. And it also specifically will not hurt them if you throw them at the Pokemon.
Well, I guess I don't know how old your character is, like a 10-year-old. So, I mean, how hard can a 10-year-old really throw to hurt a giant Pokemon like that? Maybe that's a part of it.
You're not going to hurt like Dodrio that badly with even an apple. Especially when he's 10, 15 feet away.
My main thing with this one is I'm watching her play, and there's like weird texture issues happening with the cliffs. The shadows are not as dark as they should be. They're like this grayed out. It's that weird graphic effect where you can see like these halos inside the shadow itself because it's not dark enough. And I just felt like the game could have used more polish. Everything feels like it's way more CG blocky than like even the water effects are just a single layer that go onward, and they're not up to 2021 levels or even 2020 levels. I would even say that some of these effects are like a decade old, but I remind myself that it's also a kid's game, and I'm assuming kids don't care. They just want to interact with all of the different Pokemon. My adult mind is going, these Pokemon would not be together this close to one another based on these games, but whatever. You're trying to take pictures of them, and there's different stuff happening.
Yeah, but that's the Lental region. I mean, maybe these Pokemon gather in these communities there and nowhere else in the world. I also can agree with some of the texture issues, and the graphics aren't quite HD really that well, but I can forgive it enough on that it looks okay and it's fun enough to play.
Did you see Bulbacanda's video where as soon as he came across Bulbasaur, he unloaded his camera on it?
I've seen a Bulbasaur.
Yeah, I guess they're towards the end of the game, is what Kelly was telling me. It's on one of the last routes.
Wow, I wonder why they kept Bulbasaur for so late.
I'm guessing probably because I haven't seen a lot of the original Pokemon, so maybe they're kind of keeping some of the more nostalgic ones towards the end so that people that played the original Snap can be like, oh, there it is. There's my Charmander or Squirtle or Bulbasaur. And I don't know. Maybe I'm guessing. I have no idea, though.
Yeah, I have no idea. I also don't know how many routes there are in the game and if it's longer or anything because, again, I haven't played too much of it because I discovered a Pokemon styled game that I started playing instead. So,
is it on the smartphone?
Switch.
Okay.
It's a game called Nexomon. Nexomon Extinction.
Okay, so really it's not a Pokemon game. It's like you said, it's a Pokemon style game.
Yeah, it's a monster catching game, like Pokemon. And I've been playing that and having way more fun than I was with Pokemon Snap. So,
gotcha. Very cool. Palpa Kelly has said she wants to come back on the show for an episode to discuss new Pokemon Snap. So keep an eye out on that. Brocat Core, she may return just to discuss this game because it seems like she is really enjoying it. But otherwise, on the digital comic book side, there's a digital comic company called Madefire. They have suspended operations and is now processing on liquidating its assets. They've laid off all employees. The company has indefinitely suspended the sale of all of its books. It's halted planned publications of upcoming projects, suspended the app that's called Madefire. And there's a quote here from Madefire that says, quote, access to purchased content stored in the cloud may be limited, and therefore customers are encouraged to download all previously purchased content from the cloud onto the Madefire app before the end of April 2021, which has recently passed, end quote. Madefire was founded in 2011 by comic writer and artist Liam Sharp, who had previously worked on the DC Rebirth Wonder Woman, computer programmer Eugene Walden, and branding agency owner Ben Wolstenholme. So all three of them founded this app, and it was home to exclusive comics like the Overwatch game franchise one, which they have since printed into hardcovers. But it sounds to me like another example of, I mean, I guess they got lucky if you found out quick enough, but this news was just up last week. We're already in May. If you probably had days to try to download your digital comics onto and it says Madefire app. I'm sitting here wondering, can I then download it to a hard drive from that app, or what's going on? But to me, it's another example of, this is why me personally, I like having my physical books, because no one can go, hey, we're not supporting your printed copy anymore, so make sure to read them because we're going to go into your house and grab them. And people lost so many digital books.
Like, it is entirely a reason why physical is better if you really are wanting that series. If it's a series that you read once and you really didn't care too much about, okay, digital doesn't matter too much to you. But if you're wanting to reread a series, or you really enjoyed that, it's a reason why you go buy physical afterwards or beforehand, and you sit there and have it in your hand, because they're not coming to your house and taking it. But they can definitely remove it from their app. And people go, always, like, the argument is always that, oh, well, you can re-download it later. Okay, well, in this case, the app is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't they're telling you that you probably won't be able to re-download it later with maybe a day or two notice.
Yeah. I would have been pissed.
Yeah. Because it's one thing if you're telling people with like a month or two notice of, okay, well, you've got some time to download these comics and figure out what you're going to do with them. But even then, I mean, do you have a phone that has enough free space to download all of your comics? If you have hundreds, or you really invested heavily into those digital comics on that app, you could have a serious issue of not being able to download all your comics. And then you're just out of luck.
And this happens sometimes on the video game side too, right? Where they will say, we're shutting down the, let's say, PlayStation Store. And that's when they have the opportunity to re-download these games to your console, and you can always access them as long as you have them on that console, even if it's taken down from the store.
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully, at least with like the game companies, they don't limit it. It never becomes limited as far as, oh yeah, by the way, and you have 2 days to download every game or whatever. But yeah, it's the same type of thing where, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, sometimes you can re-download it if you own it. Sometimes, from what I've seen, even that doesn't work, depending on how the game left or whatever. It's definitely just a reason why digital is convenient, but you're also sacrificing other things with that convenience.
I do feel for people that did use Madefire, and hopefully they were able to back up whatever comics they had. So far, this hasn't affected other large digital retailers like Comixology, but just a reminder in case you use those apps, download, back up your comics if you can. I know the couple of Kickstarter projects that I've received where they're like, okay, here's a digital copy of the comic. And I think you can reuse that link usually, but even then I just download it straight to my hard drive, and I have like a folder of just digital comics that I've backed throughout the years. And it's just a reminder again to make a backup of your digital comics, have some kind of process or some plan in case that app, because you never know, from 1 week to another, like it did with Madefire, it can just go away.
Yeah, if you can back up your comics, it's one of those things that you should probably be doing it. Same with videos. If you're buying movies and stuff from a digital source, if you're able to back them up, because I know some people in our Discord have backed up their digital movie purchases and series and stuff like that. They back them up onto a hard drive.
Well, speaking of movies, Warner Brothers, this past week, they released a 4K trailer to promote the 4K release of Justice League. This is famously the one done by Joss Whedon. Justice League has only grown in infamy as allegations of mistreatment and abuse by Joss Whedon and other Warner Brothers executives have come to light. And they still decided, they're like, you know what, now's a good time to release Justice League in 4K. Shortly after the Snyder Cut came out, in which universally people agreed that it's a way better version, and they thought this is a good idea to do. The trailer has since been slammed as of when we're recording with over 100,000 downvotes on YouTube, which has caused a slight split in the movement, not a huge one. Most of the Snyder Cut supporters were like, okay, good. We're telling Warner Brothers this is not the version we want. We want the Snyder Cut in 4K, and we're going to get it eventually. But Warner Brothers has since come out and said that Justice League is their canon version of that movie, not the Snyder Cut. And apparently when Zack made the Snyder Cut, he had to agree to say that his version of the film is not canon. And the fans have been like, well, we can decide what's canon, right? We can support whatever Zack wants to make. If they never make any more Snyder films, we can say, okay, well, that's our ending, that's our Justice League, and so be it. But some people have argued that if you downvote a video on a YouTube channel to the point of over 100,000 downvotes compared to, I think it was 2,000 upvotes, that it hurts the YouTube channel, Warner Brothers is in this case, to where YouTube's algorithms will not show more people future videos that they may or may not upload. So their argument, this small faction of the movement is saying, well, you're hurting the future other movies outside of Warner Brothers by downvoting this video. And we've equated that to back when Justice League came out and on Blu-ray and DVD, there were people saying, well, we need to support the Joss Whedon version and buy that on 4K and Blu-ray or whatever, because then it'll tell them that we want more Justice League material. Therefore, they will release the Snyder. Just as weird logic. And these are the same people that were talking this back then 2 years ago. Don't, buy Justice League because it'll help get the Snyder Cut. No, it won't. And this won't, this isn't going to massively deter any type of future Snyder material by us massively downvoting something that we don't want to see, that I still don't see why they released the 4K version of, to be honest.
I don't understand the timing of their thing. Whether they wanted to release the 4K version or not, that is poor timing. That you're going to do it right then, and you're also going to do it during like a lot of these allegations. Like you're in the midst of dealing with a lot of these allegations from a lot of different people, and you're going to choose to promote it essentially by giving it a 4K version, stuff like that. You have to be planning for going to go downhill, like doing that. Like I don't understand the logic of any of that timing, especially.
It's really weird behavior by Warner Brothers right now, because they did this, and then yesterday it was Henry Cavill's birthday. The Warner Brothers account from what I saw, did not wish him a happy birthday. Big other movie companies like Legendary, I think even like regular blog posts, regular pages like IGN, they were wishing Henry Cavill a happy birthday and putting up The Witcher and Superman and all these other things. Warner Brothers wouldn't. And on top of that, they released news yesterday on Henry Cavill's birthday that they were moving forward with the Black Superman film. And people were saying, so they're deliberately dropping this news on his birthday, and then they're also deliberately dropping this 4K trailer in the middle of the success of the Snyder Cut. It seems like it's all just to, I don't want to call it trolling, but to antagonize the movement. Some people are saying that that they're trying to rile up the movement in a negative way to show, look at how toxic they are. And it's this really weird thing that I think at this point it is deliberate of Warner Brothers.
It's, I guess, deliberate, at least of their social media teams and stuff like that, and their PR teams, because there's something there as far as why they're choosing the timing that they're choosing. There's clearly some hinting towards something as far as why they would choose to release the information on a replacement Superman during their Superman's birthday.
Exactly.
Why, do something like the Whedon cut essentially right after the Snyder cut came out, and during the midst of all these allegations and stuff like that. Like there's something weird going on with it, and I don't think that anyone can argue too well that it's not something like you have to give something of like, no, the timing is just too perfect to be coincidence.
Yeah, it's either that or terrible PR, because any company with any sense would go, okay, this movie is getting a lot of heat over these people coming out and talking about how they were mistreated by this director of this movie that we have. Maybe we should just not, we should try
Yeah,
to put as little of that out there as possible. And they
yeah,
instead
you
went the
would think.
opposite.
Yeah, you would think even if they had a 4K version in the works, they would go, you know what? No, let's wait on that. Like, let's put it on the back burner, and maybe if all of this calms down, they can, they can release it or whatever. But clearly, they were like, nah, now is the time. Like, you know, the time people are hating on it and we're getting actual flack for it and stuff. That's the time to put it out in 4K.
Now it'll sell.
It's not like people hate it right now at all. More than they did beforehand. Like,
it's really bizarre, and I'm curious to see what else they try to do this month. Even who knows? And maybe they'll announce this new Superman at DC FanDome, which they just confirmed that they are going to have another one this year. Last year, because there was no San Diego Comic-Con, they ended up doing their own digital events, which a lot of companies are doing, and a lot of old conventions are doing as well, or they're moving away from the typical San Diego or E3 to have their own online virtual events. So FanDome was a big success for them. This year, they will be doing it on October 16th. And it will be, as they describe it, a virtual convention. It's going to focus on film, TV, comic book, and games, in which it involves DC characters. So this is where they will announce a lot of upcoming projects. Some people were saying, and I don't have faith that this is what's going to happen, because I think it's still all Warner Brother controlled. But people are saying at the very end, if they wanted to have good faith, because there's these rumors that Toby Emmerich is trying to leave Warner Brothers, who's the main guy that's holding back a lot of the Snyderverse stuff. But if that were true, they said they would have a lot of good faith with the fans if on October 16th, at the very end of the convention, of the virtual stream, Zack comes out and they announce Justice League 2 and 3, that would be like a huge thing. And I'm sitting here like, this is like E3 2004 when they announced Zelda Twilight Princess. It would be like that level of excitement. He comes out with a Hylian shield and
the Master Sword on his back or whatever. Poses in the shadows.
Did you watch any of FanDome or go on the website last year?
I did not last year. I know some of the announcements and stuff like that. I looked up like the Gotham Knights and things like that, which unfortunately was delayed because of COVID. I enjoy some of the announcements. I'm more of like the video game side and the comic book side more than the movie side. But I'm looking forward to what's going to be announced for especially the comics going forward and stuff like that. I'm not too big of a fan of the future slate currently, but
what do you think this means for conventions as a whole, where it sounds like if DC is able to do this cheaper and they're able to get their information out to more people or the same amount of people, that they will just go this route every year? Do you think that conventions like E3 or Comic-Con are going to be on a smaller scale moving forward as some of these companies start to figure out that they can do a virtual version of them instead?
Yeah, I think some of the big conventions like E3 or Comic-Con, where it's got a ton of industry panels, it has things that people are really like these big hype announcements that are super popular around the world type of thing. I believe those are probably going to slowly start going away from that, because like COVID kind of gave them the perfect excuse. Because for something like E3, Nintendo already had abandoned E3. And Sony was already about to abandon E3, and then COVID gave them the perfect reason to abandon it. So I can see the same thing kind of happening with Comic-Con, where DC learned last year, we can do this, virtually. People love it. It costs us next to nothing to do it. We're not having to fly our comic artists in. We're not having to fly all these other people in and do this whole big production and pay all this money to this convention, when we can just do it virtually and have it all ready to go.
It used to be that Hall H was the big thing. That's where they'd announce the new Avengers movie, or that's where they announced Batman vs Superman many years ago. And a lot of people were arguing too that there's this weird thing, and I'm curious to hear what you think about it, where that's where they would show off the first teasers or the full trailers of these movies. Suicide Squad had its first teaser trailer on there, and people would leak it via, they'd record it on their little phone, and you'd get this low quality version of these things, and you'd see it on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, and they would try to take them down, but people would obviously download them and reshare them. And they would then ask these companies, why don't you release an HD version of that trailer that you just showed at Comic-Con today so that we can all see it as well? And their argument was, well, we want to keep that exclusive to the people that lined up at Hall H to see this event. So therefore, at least I think that it kind of hurts their branding a little bit when they're trying to show off these trailers and all we have is a low-res version of it. And I think that does leave an impression on people of, oh, well, that doesn't seem like that great of a trailer or whatever. But on their end, they're kind of like, well, we want to make it special for these people as well. Where do you kind of sit on that? Do you think if they virtually do this, that it'll avoid all of that by them releasing an HD trailer worldwide instead?
I think so. And I think it's better to just release the trailer worldwide, because even back then, I thought it was a little bit of a weird business practice to show a trailer and just be like, okay, that's it. The 100 people in the room got to experience the trailer. The rest of the world, no, you don't get to experience this trailer, but go buy or go watch our movie in theaters. It's like, what do you mean? I don't know what the trailer looks like or anything else. I've got this one sweaty dude discussing this blog post about what the trailer was, but that's all I've got to go on. So it makes more sense to me that they're, if they release it to everyone at once and just say, here you go, enjoy. Because I always thought that they would just show it at the convention and then maybe a week later show it as a world premiere everywhere.
Sometimes they would, but some didn't. Yeah.
So it's like they were, no, it's exclusive to them until maybe a year later when the movie's about to come out that, oh, by the way, here's that trailer we showed.
Yeah, so it's always funny to me how they handle that in the past.
Yeah, I just never understood it. But so I'm happy that they're doing, the worldwide trailers with DC FanDome. I think it's a better business model, in all honesty. But I'm also not DC, so I have no idea. I'm not looking at all the numbers and stuff like that.
One of the things that the DC account on Twitter asked is, what would you like to see at hashtag DC FanDome? And I made that meme of all the Restore the Snyder Cut tweets looking over from that Five Nights at Freddy's, like all the puppets looking over at the camera. Like, it's like, really? What do you think we want to see? and I think it's one of those things where, honestly, if it is a surprise, I don't think Zach would keep it a surprise anyway. He would say on Vero, make sure to tune in to DC FanDome, and then we would all be there to support it, and it'd be a huge success. But I think if Zach doesn't say anything about FanDome and refuses to acknowledge it, then I think that means he's not involved in any way. So we're still months away. There could be contracts happening between now and then, or nothing at all. But I think by then we'll have a better idea on whether or not there's anything more to the Snyderverse come October 2021. But hopefully they announce more Damian Wayne content, which is what we're going to get into now with Robin #1. It's been a little bit since we've covered a comic book highlight on the podcast, but thankfully a couple of the co-hosts on this rotation, like Bobby and yourself, are comic book readers. And Damian Wayne, you and I both sit on the same camp of it is our favorite Robin, and we wanted to discuss this #1 issue as written by Joshua Williamson, and it is going to be a spoiler review or discussion, and followed with the Demon Slayer discussion as well. So all spoilers for the rest of the episode. If you don't want to be spoiled on either one, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Otherwise, what were your thoughts on this kickoff first issue of Robin #1?
Honestly, it was just okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nothing really blew me away. Nothing disappointed me too hard. I mean, Damien was sometimes a little weird, like acted a little strange, but other times he was kind of more normal from what I've seen.
So out of character in a certain way, or?
there was just a few lines of dialogue that I thought was kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, it was just okay. I don't really care, not knowing a lot of Future Slate. I don't know like what this whole League of Lazarus is tournament thing, if that's been explained before this, because it seemed like something I should know what it is going into Volume 1.
I got a little bit of that impression too, but then when I read the line from Damien that says, why were grandfather and my mother trying to keep me from the Lazarus tournament? That's when I was like, okay, so we're also figuring out why he shouldn't be on this island or this tournament or whatever. So that's why I was like, okay, maybe, I don't know anything about it. And they didn't explain anything in the lead ups in they did these Detective Comics backups with that Joshua Williamson wrote, which were a primer to this solo series, but it was primarily Damian kind of distancing himself from Batman and the Bat family and being in contact with Talia, his mother. And there's these other assassins that are the Lazarus something. You mentioned the name. And they are trying to kill Talia and Damien. And that's when Talia says something along the lines of, I didn't want you involved in that aspect, but now it's affecting our lives. So Damien wants to go and find out why these people are trying to kill the Al Ghuls. And that's about as much as I know.
Okay. Yeah, that gives a little bit more, but not a ton more. Like, it was a little bit of a strange issue 1 in that aspect. Only because most of the book I'm sitting there going, should I know this? Like, this seems like, you're telling me information I already should know, and I don't. Is it? And as not really reading a lot of Future Slate, I'm sitting there going, is it in other Future Slate books that I should be? Do I have to look at tie-ins again? Am I reading Bendis? Like,
yeah, that's the only primer that I was aware of, though, because in Teen Titans they're doing their own thing, and so they haven't really explained too much on what. As far as I know, I'm caught up on anything Damian Wayne, Joshua Williamson stuff, and it was just the 10 pages or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I like that they're kind of doing this whole how Alfred's death is kind of weighing on Damian and things of that nature. I mean, I guess they needed a reason also for Damian to kind of go off on his own and have his own adventure and not just be with Batman. And that kind of gave an excuse of, oh, well, between the League of Lazarus and dealing with Alfred's death and the fallout from the whole Bane situation during the Tom King run, things like that. Yeah, it gives kind of a reason. Although it is a little late, assuming that, you've been reading like James Tynion the Fourth's whole thing where it's like, okay, this all happened, and then like, what, maybe a year later, 2 years later, Damien's now dealing with after or fallout from it.
Yeah, that's true. And it hasn't, I don't know where in this timeline it sits, and I guess it's not that important, but they were really trying to, it's one of the problems with when you have these different titles that are coming up off of events, you have to explain, okay, well, if Damian went through the City of Bane arc or the Joker War, then how's that affected him here? So we have to try to explain it over here. And I think that's one of the problems with over worrying about canon. But then if you don't, readers get upset and they're like, wait a minute, but I thought Batman was over here during this, and I thought he lost his arm over here.
Like, there's certain things that they have to pay attention to, and then certain things that doesn't really matter. But it was just kind of weird that, he's dealing with the after effects now, I guess. And it also assumes that you read Tom King's City of Bane run and that you read Joker War, which I had not read Joker War. But It's not that big of important. The major one was Alfred getting killed during City of Bane. That was kind of the big one that they have, especially when Alfred's showing up as like a little ghost.
And this particular issue did introduce a lot of new characters, like Flatline. That was it ended up being a speculator issue where a bunch of people
was a new character, or if that was announced in like one of the other Future Slates.
Yeah, she shows that there's another stupid issue like Detective 1034, I think. And that's the one that I was telling you about, that Joshua Williamson has a few pages of backup before this. And all it is she appears on a computer monitor where some shadowed villain is like, here's the attendance to the island or whatever. And she shows up there. So some people are like, that's the cameo appearance of Flatline. And then Robin #1 is the full appearance of Flatline, who, as you mentioned, she is a new character that apparently pulls out hearts, or maybe that's a symbolic thing. I don't know. We're going to find out in Robin 2.
Yeah, I don't know. She might just have gone Kano on him. I don't. To your point, we'll find out at the beginning of issue 2. Either that or that was a really short miniseries. And canceled after issue 1. We're good. Damian died.
The poor writer in me tells me that maybe they're setting up a romance between Robin and Flatline, just so that the writer, 2 years from now can be like, remember when they first met, she literally took his heart. And, that poor writer in me is like, that. I wonder if that's what he's setting up.
That would be great.
I kind of sit on the same camp there, Scott. I was not blown away by issue #1. I enjoyed Damian when he is interacting with the Bat family, when he is arrogant, when he is being a little shit. In Challenge of the Super Sons, he does the same thing. He's kind of a dick to John, but he's a friend to him as well. And in this one, he doesn't quite yet have those characters set up to interact with. He is on his own. He beats up that one guy in the ring tournament or whatever, and he makes fun of him and tells him his tattoo is dumb, which I thought was funny. But until we get these other characters in issue #2 and on, and if we see those interactions, I think that'll be enough for me personally to carry on with the series. But so far, it sounds like it was more of a setup issue rather than a progress.
Yeah, pretty much. It was essentially just there to say, oh, he left, Batman and the Bat family to go explore what this League of Lazarus thing is, the tournament, and went to the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess now he's going to fight in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
To save the world from Outrealm.
Yep.
2 weeks in a row, you get Mortal Kombat content.
That's right. Yeah. How blown away would you be if at the end he Shao Kahn comes out and he's like, "You will," or Shang Tsung?
We find out the Robin miniseries was actually a crossover comic.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
Or what if we found out that this whole series was literally just a Mortal Kombat comic, and then they had lost the license and had to go and be like, here, throw Robin in there, throw Damian in this. What other DC characters can we throw in? Let's throw in Slade's daughter.
Right. Make up new ones.
Yeah. You find out Slade's daughter was just Sonya Blade, just recolored.
That's funny. All right. So I think the overall thoughts, if you enjoyed Damian, give this first one a shot. I'll give it a few more issues and see where it goes. But otherwise, this is the final portion of this week's episode. It is the highest grossing, most attended Japanese box office film up to today of all time. And it is our discussion of the Demon Slayer Mugen Train film. Umai! This is directed by Haruo Sotozaki, who did Tales of Zestiria the X and the Demon Slayer series. Written by Koyoharu Gotogi, who wrote the Demon Slayer series. Starring Natsuki Hane from Star Mew, Akira Okito from Sword Art Online, Hiro Shimono from Attack on Titan, and Yoshitsugu Matsuoko from Devil's Line. As we mentioned earlier, in December 2020, it surpassed Spirited Away as Japan's most successful film. It is also the highest-grossing R-rated animated movie. You and I went into theaters to see it. We saw it on the big screen. My opinion, as it should be. I like seeing movies in theaters for the most part. And something like Demon Slayer, I thought played really well on the big screen. And was this your first movie post-COVID or during COVID, I guess?
Yeah, that was the first one since 2020. So it's been quite a long time since I've been in a movie theater, eating the overpriced food and getting the overpriced drink.
Mm-hmm. it's a part of it, yeah.
And seeing things on the big screen. And watching Demon Slayer on the big screen was just a treat because the animation is very, very well done. And it plays very nicely on a big screen. And it's not something you can anime movies are not something you can always see on a big screen in the US.
Right.
You know, in Japan, like that's just commonplace. Just like a normal Disney movie here is commonplace on a big screen. In the US, it's select theaters, select dates, and if you were lucky, you got to go see it. If not, that was it.
Yeah, normally it's for like Fathom events, that kind of thing, but this seemed like a regular nationwide or at least a like theater release. It wasn't like a special one night event.
Yeah, it wasn't like with for instance, the My Hero Academia movie where it was, I think, 4 nights. It was 2 weeks, like on Friday, Saturday night for 2 weeks, and that was it. You had 4 chances to see it. It was at one theater near us, and that was the only place showing it.
And it was subtitled like you wanted.
No, or Demon Slayer was, yeah.
Right.
Demon Slayer, they actually had options, which some anime movies you get options, some you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, with the My Hero one, I had to go watch it dubbed, and that was terrible.
Do you regretted that? Would you have chosen not to go instead?
I mean, probably, but I'm not the biggest fan of My Hero Academia.
Mm-hmm.
I just went and saw it because Julian was down at the time, and we were looking for something to do. And oh look, My Hero Academia movie. Sure, let's go watch it. But Demon Slayer, it was nice seeing and subbed.
Yeah, and I was telling Julian last week that there were a lot of weebs there, but there was no tag happening and no one crawling around the floor in the theater. And I'm like, man, and he's like, it's not I think it was you too that were like, it's not a convention. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the same people. It's those people.
It's the same people. But even then, there was no like cheering during climaxes of the movie,
right?
Or like when the first demon dies, there was no like big thing. There was no reactions from the audience other than the occasional laugh during a comedic scene or something like that. It was really weird watching an anime movie in theaters like that, where there was no real crowd participation, or even just a normal movie. Because I've seen it with, different action movies and stuff where like people will be like, yeah, or whatever. And like, it was just, nope, it was silence other than the occasional laugh during a comedic scene. And that was it.
Yeah,
and
I remember
a strange experience.
When I saw the One Piece movie or Dragon Ball Super, it was loud and shit. People were yelling and clapping and hollering, and the dude bro, maybe it was missing dude bros because they were going, oh, and this, I did not see any dude bros in this one. I don't think it's that kind of series where it'll attract that crowd. Naturo would be Dragon Ball, of course, but Demon Slayer, for whatever reason, I guess there's not enough. I guess action or whatever. I really don't know what's different about Demon Slayer compared to, something like Dragon Ball.
I don't know. Maybe it's the buff dudes. They want to see the buff dudes. Yeah. There is no buff dudes in Demon Slayer, so it was like, oh, fuck that.
Well, let's talk about the movie itself. The plot is pretty simple, I think. They're on a demon train. They're trying to stop it. And they're trying to do it in a way where this particular demon puts everyone to sleep, and they're trying to get out of that dream, which we've seen that plot before in things like Batman the Animated Series, The Twilight Zone, but in Demon Slayer, it obviously pertains to the different characters that up to this point, they're assuming you've seen the series, so you kind of understand that Tanjiro's family was killed by demons, where I'm assuming that's what we think so far, that's what he's saying, and in this one, that's kind of the reality that he wakes up in or dreams about, of my family's back and I want to stay in this dream, but I can't because that's not reality. And that's kind of where that trope takes everyone of it's not real. You got to get out of it. And now we got to defeat this demon train. And that's basically the plot. I think it was fairly straightforward.
Yeah. And that's partly because it is just the next story arc in the manga. Like, this was not like a typical anime movie where it's this separate universe where it's a movie made for this, where, they have an adventure with the beginning, middle, climax. This was literally just, hey, what happens next? This. Okay, we're making it into a movie then. Instead of a 12-episode, season. So it really kind of makes it a weird... They did well making it into a movie. I think it still worked, but it was kind of this weird thing of like, yeah, we're not going to explain who these characters are. You should have watched the 26 episodes, because if not, you're going to be confused going into this, or at least you're going to be at a disadvantage going into it. Because I'm pretty sure you can still figure out enough information from watching the movie to get a vague idea of what's going on, or at least enough to enjoy the movie. You're just going to be a little more confused at, okay, so I guess Tanjiro's family being alive is a thing that's not normal. Got it. Or some of the character personalities, like Zenitsu being able to be badass when he's asleep, and only when he's asleep.
Right.
Things like that, you'd kind of go, okay, I guess that's something in the series. Whereas a normal anime movie would be like, oh, here's the characters, here's a little introduction to all of them and their names and stuff beforehand. And this one just is dope. It's literally just as if you hit play on episode 27 and it was a 2-hour long episode.
Right. My brother who came with us had not seen an episode of Demon Slayer. He said he was able to figure it out by the end of like, okay, I get what the stories here are and why these are significant. The one character, though, that was unique, and I didn't remember him in the series, but I guess he appeared very briefly, was Kyojuro, who is given their backstory in this arc or in this movie. And that's where we find out why he does what he does, what drives him in it, and this is pretty much the end of that character. They don't go further with him, and that ended up being kind of the low point of the movie, where it ended on a sad note, to be honest with you. Like this particular arc, it did end I guess in a victory in a way, for depending on how you look at it, just like Tanjiro did, where the head demon had to flee. Therefore, he was like, okay, well, you're not the winner here. You had to flee because of the sunlight. He's the winner. He beat you or whatever. And whether he's saying that for his own comfort or whatever is people can discuss. But this character, we didn't, at least I don't remember, we didn't get much of him in the series, right?
So yeah, Rengoku, we did not get much of him in the series as well. I mean, what you see in the movie is exactly what we got in the manga. And in the first part, he did show up briefly at the mansion when Tanjiro was called during the meeting of all the higher-ups, the Hashira.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a little bit of a taste of him. He is actually one of my favorite characters in that entire series. I really enjoyed Rengoku's just personality and the way he acts. Like, it just amused me. It made him kind of a badass, considering he took down essentially one of the upper moons, which is one of the strongest demons in existence.
Right.
I believe it's Upper Moon 4. So you're talking the 4th strongest demon in existence in that universe, which is a huge accomplishment that essentially he would have won had he just been able to hold on for a few more seconds. That's a major accomplishment, especially given later in the series during the final arc, which, obviously they have to fight all of the uppers. And considering it takes multiple Hashira to defeat a single one of them, a really testament to how strong Rengoku was as a character. But he does play a little bit of a role after his death going forward into the arcs, thankfully.
Okay.
Kind of as like a post-mortem Tanjiro's mentor.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
That, like, he keeps those lessons and stuff like that with him and things of that nature. So that'll be fun going into the next arc, where it will also focus more on a Hashira specific Hashira.
With the way Rengoku was injured, I hadn't read the manga or anything. I assumed, and the guy kept trying to convince him, like, come on, be a demon, we'll have fun. I assumed that when he got mortally injured, like, it was going to heal or something, and it was going to be revealed that he is like half demon or something. Especially when they showed his mom, and she kind of had that look to her in those flashbacks. I'm like, oh, is this where they reveal that he's like a half demon slayer type of thing? But no, it would end up being like she's just a weird looking lady,
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, she looked that way, but yeah, it's interesting that they chose to end it with a character death. I mean, that's how the arc ends, is this character you were introduced to and that you can kind of grow to like during the arc just straight up dies at the end. Like, it was kind of a bitter ending. or I guess a bittersweet, because he still saved the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the series looks at it as no one died despite an upper moon showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could not kill a single person there other than Rengoku, which is again a pretty impressive feat. So it's kind of sweet in that aspect, but I mean Rengoku also died doing it.
Right.
Which is a very sad moment of, okay, well yeah, he saved the day, but at what cost? And it's kind of an interesting thing. I also do love that they having read the manga, I was very curious to see if they were going to throw in the upper moon showing up as part of the arc, or if they're going to save that for the second one or the second season.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a fun little twist, I'm sure, for people that didn't know that was coming after they defeated the initial sleeping demon. That, oh, by the way, the movie's not over.
Right, yeah, and you get this big battle, which was awesome. In the manga, do they have that battle right away as well, or does it end? Does it have like an ending where as you mentioned, it could have gone either way? That's where the movie could have ended and then
No,
continued.
The timing and everything else was exactly the same as the manga, so that's exactly how it played out in the manga as well. I just wasn't sure if they were going to maybe kind of write in an ending for it, or something like that.
Okay,
or
gotcha.
if they were just going to go the full, no, here's the entire story arc. Because again, they were being secretive about some of the stuff, and
Right.
I also wasn't going to go specifically looking it up. I wanted to be surprised in the movie.
Yeah, it was a good way to end it because it was a great ending fight. I think if it had been just the train battle, it would have been okay, but it didn't have like that climax, whereas this did. That it had the climax and it also gave you, I think, the most, aside from Tanjiro remembering his family and his little brother like running up and falling and like that all was like, it hit you in the heart. But then it gets you again with the ending of, here he is fighting at his limit, and it all to save trying to do what's right. As his mom said, you were born with these gifts, therefore it is your responsibility to use these gifts to help out people that don't have these gifts, people who are weaker, who do need help. All of that, and that's kind of the message that it drove home at the end of, his will to die helping others and doing what's right is stronger than the temptation of, I could get stronger and become a demon instead. And that's kind of where it gave you. But his resolve, I don't think he was ever tempted during that entire fight.
No, he was pretty much like steadfast on the fact of, nope, I'm going to kill you, and this is just how it's going to be. Like there's nothing you could say that would tempt me over to the demon side. Right. It was pretty much set in stone. Like, nope, I'm good.
If I did have like maybe a criticism on my end, is the demon that showed up at the very end that you were mentioning, I didn't remember him in the series, and I think you had said that this is the first time we see him. So that's one thing that I was like, I wasn't really attached to, or I didn't see the impact of that character other than he is a high level demon. So that's one thing that I was like, okay, well, it is a random new character that we know is a high level, but it's cool that he's fighting him and we get this great fight, which makes up for it. But I was just like, okay, so it is a new character that kind of just shows up and they fight him. And I kind of thought that maybe if it had been someone that had a deeper connection to Rengoku or to the other characters, that I would have been like, oh shit, this person came back, or they're fighting this guy, and which we didn't get. But that's like the one thing that I would say just from a story writing process. But as you mentioned, it's just the next part of the arc.
Right. And in the manga, it's treated as essentially a way to kind of show you how strong the upper moons really are, because of the fact that with the demon on the train, he was able to cover most of the train very easily, of protecting all these innocent people, while Tanjiro and everyone else can maybe cover one car. He's covering like 7 or 8.
Right.
And all of these other things. They spent the first part showing you how powerful he is. And then the second part kind of showing you that, yeah, even with all of his strength, he could barely take on this upper moon, essentially, and barely eke out a win. Yeah. It cost him his life to do so. And that was pretty much the way the manga treated it, was just a way to show you, okay, here's how strong the upper moons are, and to give you an idea of that. I also enjoy the fact that the series is known for showing the demons, the sad backstory and shit. And
right.
like, nah, the sleeping demon, he just dies. Like, there's no sad backstory. It's just him dying.
He was just an asshole.
It's the same way in the manga. There's no sad backstory for him. He's like the only one that doesn't get one. It's just like, nope, he's dead.
I was like, okay, maybe it has something to do with insomnia and he wasn't able to sleep in his other life, so he doesn't want others to. No, he just finds sick pleasure in killing people, giving people their best dream and then killing them and ruining it for them. And I'm like, holy shit, he's just a dick.
Yeah, he's just a psychopathic dick. There was no redemption for him. Like, it was just, nope, we're not going to bother showing you this whole sad like, no, he's just a dick. That's all he is.
And I was waiting for it too, like Tanjiro to reach over and give him some peace, and it's like, nah, he's gonna be like, oh, is this where I die? And he disappears.
That was it. Tanjiro's like, no, screw you, bud. Like, I'm pretty sure if Tanjiro could have mustered it, he would have flipped him off at that point.
Yeah, well, he kept fucking with his memories, with his family, really, because recreating them and you know, towards the end when he kept waking himself up, the demon was trying all forms of, okay, if you don't like pleasant dreams, well, here's awful ones. And this is where it was really like, holy shit, like, it's rated R, not just for the gore and violence, but I'm like, the themes here are fucking heavy. You know, they talk about suicide. They talk about the death of his family and how he should have been the one to die and all this terrible psychological shit where I'm like, this is a fucking mentally heavy movie. Like, it's not like the manga at all, or I'm sorry, the series. Like, I think so far this is the most mentally heavy story that we've gotten.
Yeah, it very much was in the manga. There's a few others later in the series, but yeah, it's one of the heavier ones in the entire series.
And that's one thing that Julian was mentioning last week of, like, it's just dark and a little depressing. And he's like, words like, can we get a little happiness in here? Like, towards the end, maybe? And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty bleak. It's a pretty bleak movie, like, for what it is, you know?
It really is. And I think that was kind of a tonal shift for the series in the manga as well. Was, I don't know if it was the mangaka kind of coming into what they wanted to do with the series, or whether it was just, that's what their plan the whole time was. You know, to start you out, to introduce the characters in a more, not fully happy-go-lucky way, but a more happy-go-lucky way than the tones and themes brought up later on.
Like, more accessible is what you're saying to, like, newer readers or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's more of a, I mean, Tanjiro's family gets murdered by a demon. But there's also a lot of comedy and stuff like that. And it just kind of slowly starts getting darker and darker with heavier themes. And I think the Mugen Train is the beginning of that. It's kind of showing the turning point of the series of, okay, you know these characters now. We're really going to dive into this world and what it really means to be a demon slayer in this world.
So even currently in the latest arc, it is in this same tone. It seems like this is where they're going to go moving forward.
The series is currently over.
Okay.
So it ended last year.
So we know how the manga ends then. We know they're not doing any more?
No, it is completely over. They did a special one-shot, which was just Rengoku's brother, his younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
They showed a little bit of what he did after the series for about 20 pages, and that was it. That's all that's really come out. It's kind of funny in a way because right as the manga picked up in popularity is when they put out the final chapter. Like,
wow.
Right when the anime was doing its big thing and it was hitting its popularity, that was it. Like, they put out their final chapter and ended it on their terms, and that was the end of the series. And it was just kind of a weird situation of, essentially didn't become popular until it was over.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I were talking about pre-recording, where because it had, for whatever reason, kind of a late bloom as far as popularity, these contracts that some of the series creator and the voice actors had with whatever production studio they went with over in Japan, I don't know if it's still Funimation over there. I think that Funimation's a US thing, but the contract they had worked up for this movie, essentially they felt they weren't compensated properly for how big for being the highest grossing movie in Japan of all time. So, but a result of that is because they drew up these contracts at a time where the series was not popular as it is now. They had decided they were going to do this movie before it hit its popularity. They're like, the second arc is going to be a movie, and then we'll see from there. And those contracts were already done, so unfortunately, I believe they mentioned they got paid as if it were simply a second season, and they felt like maybe the big company, whoever the distribution is, should go back and maybe compensate them a little more for it being such a massive success in spite of that old contract. They don't have to, because it's a contract, right? But it's kind of one of those things where
that's the whole thing,
right?
You're kind of locked in, because if it hadn't been a big success, there'd be no issue. But what it does give them power for is negotiating for season 2, the actual season 2's contracts, because now they can go, well, we know the success of the series, so we demand more money for season 2.
Right, assuming hopefully that those contracts weren't done already. Like, we got you for the 3 seasons or the 4 seasons we're gonna do.
I don't think they did, because from the looks of it, with how late they announced the actual season 2 versus Mugen Train, where at the end of season 1, episode 26, they showed like a little like, oh, it'll continue in Mugen Train the movie. There was nothing for season 2. Like, there was no teaser in the movie. There was no nothing. And it was announced only after the movie became the highest grossing film in Japanese box office, that they're like, you know what? We can do a season 2 and do the next arc. Like I don't see why not, guys. Like, So I think originally they had planned to end it with the movie and just kind of call it a day. And then the popularity just exploded. And once that happened, they were like, well, we'll be stupid to leave money on the table at this point, Well,
that's one of the things. Money definitely talks. Do you think that they will, you said that it's already finished, the final arc is out. Do you think they'll pull an Inuyasha or Naturo, where they'll do a Boruto and a future series, maybe with a different creator or a different writer? But do you think the success of this being the highest grossing Japanese film will spawn another arc in some form later on down the road?
One aspect of the ending to the manga really doesn't lend itself for anything such as that. Like, there is a very big aspect to the series that has a lot of finality.
Well, even if the world ends and explodes, they can be like, wait a sec, there's this Time Lord that we're going to introduce, and he's going to reverse things.
Because there is a lot of depressing crap that happens at the end of that series. That series gets so depressing at the end. So depressing.
Well, another way you can do it is you can pull a Twilight and tell the story from a different character's perspective. We're going to retell it all, but now from this guy's perspective.
We'll see it through Zenitsu's perspective. He just sleeps through every major battle. It's like, what happened? It's fine. No, I think that it's one shot or something like that. What happened after the final, because after the final battle.
Okay.
But I think it wouldn't be anything more than a one shot.
Gotcha.
But it is nice that the series gained its popularity, and I know manga volumes of it are super hard to find right now. Because of the popularity of it growing so quickly and so intensely, mixed with COVID production issues, was a perfect storm for that, and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Right.
As we're discovering right now.
Yeah, they're doing really well. To anyone, if this is your first episode, I work at a comic shop, and anything Demon Slayer, a lot of it is out of print. Anytime I get like the little Banpresto figurines, I keep ordering up, like, okay, let me get 6 this time, let me get 8 this time, and within a month they're all gone. And they don't come out with these fast enough to where I can go, okay, well, there's a new one coming out next month anyway, so we'll be fine. No, they come out with these little statues, months at a time, sometimes every 2 or 3 months. So I kind of have to wait until the next one. And I've even put in advanced reorders for, I'm like, oh shit, that was in a catalog from 2 months ago. Let me put in an order now to try to get them. And Diamond will come back like, no, they're back ordered before release. And it's like, shit. So like whatever ones are in the current catalog, which will probably come out half a year from now, I'm still going to order up on, because I'm going to assume that, wouldn't have wrapped up in 6 months, anime wise at least. And I can probably still sell through those.
sure that the popularity of the series will continue on because of season 2 coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that they're going to do a season 3 because after the events of season 2, it's just the final arc at that point.
Awesome.
So I'm figuring that they'll probably just, due to the popularity of the series, they probably will have the voice actor sign on for season 2 and a 3 in case they choose to do season 3 and the popularity continues. It would make the most sense.
Do we
or
know?
Perhaps
Yeah,
do
go
a
ahead.
movie, season 2 and then a final movie, just like they did with season 1.
Right, depending on maybe which one was more profitable for them, whether doing a series or another film. Do we know when the Mugen Train is going to release on home video?
We don't know that currently. We do know that it will arrive on digital platforms the 22nd of July. So
Okay.
that's when it'll be widely available and not just in theaters. So it'll be on things like, I believe, the Funimation app, if you have a Funimation account, along with where you can purchase it on places like Amazon or PlayStation or Xbox. But no, we haven't gotten an official release for physical yet, which I'm waiting for. Going to buy my Blu-ray.
Right.
I would imagine it's probably going to be sometime around August or September.
Yeah.
If they're doing the digital in July.
Yeah, usually they're like a month or so out, so hopefully in August or whatever.
Yeah, because it's already done. They just have to print it onto Blu-rays. There's no real work to be done at that point. They've already subbed the movie. They've already dubbed the movie for the theatrical release.
Oh, I didn't know they dubbed it because I only saw the subtitled version on the app on Cinemark.
Yeah, it is dubbed as well.
Okay. Is that up on movie theaters also, dubbed version? Like you can...
Yeah, you can select between the sub or the dub.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So some nights they're running the dubs, some nights the subs.
Yeah, so it's definitely done. Yeah, just go through the production of releasing it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of putting it onto a Blu-ray, So I can't imagine it will be that long after the digital distribution starts. Because I think they're trying to give it enough of a theatrical run that people will go see it in theaters, which is why they're waiting until July 22nd to release it digitally.
If you want to catch up on Demon Slayer, obviously there's the manga if you can try to find it. If you're a digital reader, those are up digitally. Where would you say if someone wanted to read it digitally, they'd be able to catch up?
So if you're wanting to read it digitally, I would recommend the Shonen Jump app or the Viz app. It's $2 a month, which is not a very bad price at all. And it has the entire series at that point for the $2 price.
Yeah, no, that's a great price.
Just double checking that, yes, they do have every chapter up. Because for a while they were missing a few in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But
wonder why. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, they were missing like a chunk of like 30 or 40 chapters in the middle that I had to use other sources to read at the time. You can read them all officially through the Viz app or the Shonen Jump app. Or you could go buy them digitally if you'd like from any digital retailer. And then physically, of course, the superior way to go, which they're doing. If you're looking for physical, go ask your local comic shop to buy or to order you the box set.
Oh, when's that come out?
I believe August, which because it releases with the final volume.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's coming up quick. Holy shit! 3
volumes in it, and like a poster.
Wow.
In a giant box set, and it's I believe $80.
Yeah, that saves you money right there because that's over 20 You mentioned that, over 20 volumes, and usually each volume is $9.99.
Yeah, so it's definitely the better deal for buying kind of in bulk in the box set. Plus, that way you're also not missing a volume. You don't have to track down anything with it being so hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go to your local comic shop, ask them to order you one, and then make sure you pick it up. If not, I'm sure the comic shop will have no problem selling the crap out of that thing.
Yeah, it's like the one instance. It's kind of like when someone didn't pick up that Batman Fortnite 0 point a few days ago. I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah, I don't mind that one. It's like, it'll be gone within 10 seconds anyway.
Right.
Like the next person that calls, yep, there you go. But yeah, if you're looking for the series, that's going to be the way to do it if you want to wait. If you've already got obviously a bunch of the series, then you'll have to weigh if it makes financial sense for you to buy the box set. But if you're wanting to get into the series, that's how you'll do it physically. In my recommendation is picking up just the box set as a whole, or you can go the digital route with the Viz app.
Very cool. Awesome. And the way that I was able to catch up on Demon Slayers, they have all the episodes up to Mugen Train up on Netflix, and they have them subbed and dubbed. And it is one warning I will give, because it's not something I was expecting. It's not something that is teen plus friendly. So if they watch, like, let's say, because I know a lot of teens and younger readers are getting into manga especially, and I have parents that will come in that grew up on things like Inuyasha and Dragon Ball, and they'll ask me about these series. And one thing that I will say about Demon Slayer is, if you haven't already gotten it from the review, it is very much a mature series. There's a lot of blood, there's gore. So that's one thing that I started playing in the shop before I saw the series and sat down and watched it all. And then I'm seeing heads beheaded and blood, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be playing this in here. And this is not at all like Naruto, where I can play it or whatever. So that's one warning. But they are up on Netflix, so you can catch up like I did. And then later on in a couple of months, you can pick up the film, and then hopefully season 2 shortly after, or whatever, season 3, however you want to label it. The next arc is going to be up shortly after that. Anything else you want to say about the Mugen Train movie before we wrap up?
I want to address one issue that I did, or one correction.
Sure.
The manga box set is now $150.
Well, still less than $200.
Yeah, it would normally have been $230 before tax. It's now $150 if you buy it as a box set, and it comes out October 5th. It was pushed back, I guess, in release because probably due to COVID and everything else, and the production issues.
And hopefully demand, because like, how many of those did they have to, like, well, let's print up more of these things.
Sure that, like, they're going to print the heck out of those things, but each one takes them printing all 23 volumes to make one set.
I'm even thinking, like,
back a lot of their volumes just for that specific purpose.
I'm even thinking for comic shops, if by the time this box set comes out, the regular volumes are still hard to find, just order the fucking box set and bust them open and sell them individually, because holy shit.
Like, you probably could at that point and just have your own stock in the back of literally the box sets. If someone wants the box set, great. Here you go. Not, boom, piece it out, put it on the shelf.
Right, exactly. So lots of ways to catch up on Demon Slayer. It is something that I recommend as a very casual anime watcher, and something that sounds like Scott definitely recommends as someone who is very heavy on anime and all things weeb culture.
Like, it is a fun series, enjoyable. And again, you can also watch it not only on Netflix, the Verve app, or the Crunchyroll app as well.
Perfect. So not just Netflix, but also,
I
Verve.
believe also Funimation has it. So
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Plenty of ways to watch that series on a lot of different streaming services.
Very, very cool. So Scott, huge thanks for coming on and discussing Demon Slayer. And the rest of the news that we had this week. Where can the Brocat Core find you if they want to continue the conversation?
So they can find us, or find me, on the Lazy Gaming Guys Discord. There's a link in our Twitter page, which is at Lazy Gaming Guys. There's also the Lazy Gaming Guys YouTube channel, where you can find me every Wednesday night at 10 p.m., roughly 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We're not always exactly on time at 10, but it's always tends to be before 10:30, barring any major issues. And yeah, that you can also find me on Twitter at PandaAnime. I'm not as active on that, but you can find me there.
If they ping you, I'm sure it'll tell you, right?
Yeah, if they ping me, I look and stuff. Other than that, I just go through and look at my timeline. I don't post a whole lot.
Awesome. There will be links to all of these as well in the description of today's episode. I will say you can also find the Lazy Gaming Guys audio streams, a lot of them on Apple Podcasts and on the same podcatcher that you're listening to this episode on. Just one word, search Lazy Gaming Guys. You will find the feed. So in case you want Lazy Gaming Guys on the go, audio only, you can subscribe to that podcast, which I basically just translate the audio, move it on over, do the alphonic audio leveling, and put it up on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, some of the episodes of the podcast are pretty entertaining, so I definitely would recommend listening to them if you enjoy our content.
Very good. Awesome. And then the last thing I will say this week is if you enjoyed this week's episode or any of the previous ones and you want to help out with the monthly costs that go with uploading the podcast every week, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get the podcast early, sometimes a few days early, but otherwise we do a usually once a month Patreon exclusive episode that goes up a full 30 days before it goes up publicly. So there's also some exclusive content that you can enjoy with the help of the rotating co-hosts. So last thank you again, Scott, for coming on. I know it's very early at the time we're recording this for you, so thank you so much. I do appreciate you helping out with this week's episode.
No problem. It's always fun to be on. So,
and Brokehead Core, thank you as well for tuning in this week. All will be well. So since you are the other major Damian Wayne fan that is part of this co-host here, did you read that one arc in Batman and Robin by Peter J. Tomasi where he took one item from every previous Robin just to prove that he was the best Robin?
Yes.
Who did you feel was the most embarrassed out of all of those? Who did he embarrass the most?
Probably Jason Todd.
Because he kept making fun of him dying, right?
Well, yeah. Plus, Jason Todd's a little bitch anyway. He's just an emo, and I don't know. I've never liked Jason Todd. I've never liked Red Hood. I just find him to be a whiny little bitch. I died once. Woo. So did Damian.
Right.
You don't see him talking about it.
Kind of an edgelord, right?
That happened in his life. Whereas for Red Hood, that's his whole shtick.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I died once. Batman let me down once. I'm pretty sure Batman's let a lot of people down at this point.
Oh yeah.
You're not special.
Right. Yeah, that's Damian kept telling him, and this is before he had ever come across the Joker. The first time he had was in Death of the Family, and that's when he was like, "You got killed by a clown." And it's like, part of me is like, "Well, Damian, you don't know the Joker, so." But you're right, he did.
Yeah, he literally got killed by a clown. It was a joke. What can I say? His whole life is a joke. That's Jason Todd in a nutshell.
Well, that's the thing in Batman 3 Jokers that was written by Jeff Johns and drawn by Jason Fabok. There's the Joker that killed Jason Todd that he confronts him, and Jason Todd's like, I'm going to kill this guy and finally get my, put that part of my life down. And as Joker is essentially convincing him to shoot him or kill him, he tells him, do you remember what you told me as I was hitting you with the crowbar? You begged me, you'd say you said, I'll be your Robin. I'll be anything. And he said it was so pathetic. And that's when, Jason Todd is freaking out on him. And Joker says, but what you don't realize is that you became the Red Hood. You became something that I used to be, because he started off as a Red Hood before he became the Joker. So he's like, you ended up becoming a Robin. You've been my Robin all these years. And that's when Jason Todd blows him away. And I just laughed.
It's great.